Hey, how are you guys doing? My name is Shinya from Jesus Center, and I want to share a message today for this week, and we don't have English service for this week, so I'll put my message on YouTube. And today's theme is, who is Jesus? And we're learning on the series, it's called Get Back to Basics. And today's number 2, second message. The first one is what is Christianity? So today is, who is Jesus? Today's theme is, who is Jesus? The verse for today is John 10:24-30. John 10:24-30. So please read before you listen this message. Okay, are you ready? Okay, so today's theme is, who is Jesus? I think when we see Christianity, this is a huge theme that we discuss. If I ask you, who do you think Jesus is? How would you answer? And if you ask people, who is Jesus? There are some answers about Jesus Christ. The common answers are these 3 answers, maybe. The first is, he is just in the book, an imaginary person. He wasn't real. The Bible is just a fantasy. The second is, he is a great teacher, and he taught great things to people, so he is a human being. Just a person. The last is, he is God. He is the Savior. So today, I bring up some info. Then we want to learn who Jesus really is. Today's point number 1 is, was Jesus real? Was Jesus real? Did a person named Jesus and the Bible exist? What do you think? If we come up to this topic, the right place or right people we ask are historians. They learn about history. And nowadays, all historians prove that Jesus existed. So all historians says, yes, Jesus existed. Because so many history books recorded about Jesus. In the first century, a Roman historian, Tacitus, also a Roman historian, Astonius, recorded about Jesus in their books. A famous Jew historian, Josephus, recorded about Jesus and said this: Now there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man. For he was a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of such men as received the truth with pleasure. He drew over to him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was a Christ. And when Pilate, at the suggestion of the principal men amongst us, had condemned him to the cross, those that loved him at first did not forsake him, for he appeared to them alive again on the 3rd day, as the divine prophets have foretold these and 10,000 other wonderful things concerning him. And then and the tribe of Christians, so named from him, are not extinct at this day. So through historians' views, we could say that Jesus existed. As we know, the New Testament follows a lot of stories of Jesus. Then number 2, is the New Testament a reliable book? Is the New Testament a reliable book? Professor McGrath, who teaches science and religions at Oxford University, says that his views should be considered through textual criticism. The textual criticism is a technique of restoring texts as nearly as possible to their original form. All books were written by hand before the printing press was invented. It's called a manuscript. So what they do is compare the modern New Testament with its original copy, then compare it with the original, and go back and keep comparing with the original New Testament. And you can say that it is correct if the text is correct. What is surprising is that in the case of the New Testament, the period in which it was copied after the original was written is quite short. Comparing the modern New Testament with the original, it can be said that nothing has been changed or added to it, and it is accurate. The professor McGrath said, "The Bible is a book that can be taken seriously and trusted." H.J.A. Hart, who is a professor of textual criticism, says the New Testament is outstanding in the kind of completeness of its evidence. This means that the New Testament accurately represents the person of Jesus. Also, we can learn about Jesus accurately from the Bible. When we look at the Bible, there are many scenes where Jesus himself introduces or explains himself. In Mark 14:61-62 says, "But Jesus remained silent and gave no answer. Again the high priest asked him, 'Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One?' 'I am,' said Jesus. 'And you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven.'" So the high priest asked Jesus, "Are you a Savior?" He said, "Yes, I am." This was enough for the high priest to accuse Jesus of blasphemy. The reason for this is that the law says you must not take the name of God in vain. Also, calling oneself a god was considered blasphemy. That's why the high priest and other scribes were so angry that they appealed and sentenced Jesus to death. The crime for which Jesus was crucified was blasphemy. They could not find any other sin in Jesus. Jesus also said in today's verse, and John 10:30 says, "I and the Father are one." Now, what I want you to think about is, if there is a person who claims to be God, there are three possibilities. One is a liar. That person pretends to be God, even though he is not God. The second is a person who don't understand the difference between a fantasy world and reality. The person is just a crazy. The third one is real God. Because he truly is God, there is no other way to explain it. Now, Jesus called himself as God. Then, which one was he? Either he was a liar, he was a crazy guy, or he was God. To verify this, we need to look at who Jesus was deeply. So let's take a look at the humanity of Jesus. When you look at the teachings of Jesus, Jesus reached out to so many people who had troubles in his or her life. Then he gave hope. The John 8:12 said, "When Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, 'I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life.'" Also, Matthew 11:28 said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. And the Sermon of the Mount was such a great teachings. Even now, people talk about them. And Jesus didn't just reach to people. He showed his heart, and he gave them wisdom and knowledge that none of people back in the day had. So Jesus was after sick people, and he healed them. Jesus was full of emotion and was loved by people. Is this kind of the person was a liar, or he was a crazy guy, or he was God? Let us see Jesus' work too. If you look at the work of Jesus, all were wonderful works. He turned water into wine and calmed the storm, and he fed more than 5,000 people with little food, and healed many, and raised the dead. And he was not the kind of person who controlled people, who had power and made people whatever he wanted. Through his works, we see he sought great things for people. He worked for people. So what about the personality of Jesus? You can tell if someone is lying or is a little weird depending on their personalities. Some people back in the New Testament era described Jesus this way. He was very attractive as a human being. People followed him because he was so fascinating and just so fun. He was not weak Galilean. He was also adorable, surrounded by children who laughed, and he always had fun with them. If you look at the Bible, even before Jesus went to the cross, the governor of Judea, Pilate, said, I can find no sin in Jesus. He was a wonderful human being, both morally and personally. So when we look at all about him, was he a liar? Was he a crazy guy? Was he God? When we see the Bible, there are two big proofs that Jesus was God. One is fulfillment of prophecies in the Bible. He lived his life according to the prophecies of the Old Testament. There are over 300 prophecies about the Savior in the Old Testament. All of these has been accomplished and fit on Jesus. He was born in Bethlehem from virgin and overcoming suffering, being crucified and raising from the dead after 3 days. They're all on him. American writer Wilbur Smith said, there is nothing in Islam that predicts the birth of Muhammad hundreds of years in advance. The appearance of the founder of any religions in history is not specifically and accurately predicted in the ancient texts. Only Jesus was recorded to be born, and in what form for hundreds of years, and it was predicted in the Old Testament that not only would he be born, but also what kind of life he would lead. Jesus fulfilled all 300 prophecies. The other thing is a resurrection of Jesus. He was crucified and placed in the tomb on Friday. When the disciples went there on Sunday, they found that the body was not there. When people read the Bible in this passage, they make several assumptions. One is the disciples saw a vision, not real. Then the body should have been there. 2, Jesus Christ wasn't dead, was not dead. He had just passed out. At that time, crucifixion was the most horrible punishment for human being could receive. There was also a rule that if a Roman soldier executed a prisoner and let the prisoner live, the Roman soldier would be crucified. If you look at the Bible, Jesus Christ took his last breath and was stabbed with a spear, so he was dead. The 3. Was Jesus' body stolen? Somebody stole Jesus' body. That's why there is no body. If the disciples had stolen it, they would have known that it was a lie that Jesus was resurrected. But think about it. Those disciples later were murdered for Jesus. A person cannot sacrifice his life for a lie. So Jews or Roman soldiers stole it. Then, when the disciples said, "He has risen," they would have brought them a dead body and denied it. This makes no sense. So there's only one possibility left. Why was the tomb empty? As the simplest answer is that he was resurrected. Why? Because Jesus was God. If I added another reason, many people who have walked with Jesus in history have been led to blessings and path of success because he's God. So I want to share one story at the end. There was a young man who was doubting if the Bible is a real book, and he hated the Bible. And he was thinking that someday he will deny the Bible. He then began to study the Bible from the beginning to the end, from every angle. But one day he came to the conclusion that the Bible is correct from every angle. 2 scenes in particular in the Bible shocked him. One is a crucifixion scene. Jesus said, "The Father, forgive them." How can you pray for your enemy when you're experiencing such terrible things? The other thing is a change of the disciples. When Jesus Christ was crucified, the disciples ran away. However, after the resurrection of Jesus Christ, those disciples changed as people who risked their lives to spread the gospel of Jesus. And he thought, it could not be said that the disciples witnessed the resurrection of Jesus. And what happened to him? He could not deny the Bible or Jesus. And later he accepted everything in the Bible and believed in Jesus Christ. His name is Lew Wallace. And after that he wrote a big story, famous story, that is called Ben-Hur. In that film, Jesus appears in one of those scenes. So I conclude with this. Yes, Jesus was a savior, and Jesus is a God. Can I hear amen? I hope you can find the right answer today. All right, that's it. So this week we don't have English service. And next week also we don't have English service because that's the first week. So we will see you on October 13th. All right, have a great week and God bless.